Hi everybody, welcome to another crochet tutorial, and this week we are going to be doing something specifically for those mums with little babies. So this is a wonderful gift for a baby shower as well, alternative gift, but also great for mums because this is what is called a timing session, movement session monitoring bracelet, I suppose. And the idea is that when mums are pregnant, they can monitor the movements of their babies. So every time you have a bout of movement, you can time that movement by moving this little buckle up and down. So you've got the S for the start of the day, and each time you have a session of movement with your baby, you can move the notches up and down, so that by the end of the day, when you get to the F, you can count how many movement sessions you've had. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, for example. And if you get to, the idea for this is that if you get to the end of the day, and normally you have say 8 or 10 movements, but on that particular day you only had a couple, you know that something might not be right with the baby, and it's a good time to call the midwife or your doctor. So this is really useful for those who are very concerned about the movement of their babies or just want to monitor the movement sessions. And also, I'll show you at the end of the video, there's another idea as well for once you've had the baby, you can use a similar buckle method for monitoring breastfeeding as well. You've got a left and a right, so that you know which was the last boob that you used to feed your little baby. A little useful bracelet. So let's begin. And for this tutorial, we are going to be just using some DK light worsted weight yarn, and I've chosen a white and a pink, so that's a yarn weight of 3. And I used a 4mm G crochet hook. And it's a good idea also to have a pair of scissors and a yarn needle as well. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our white yarn, and what you want to do is we are going to work 30 single crochet foundation stitches. Now if you're not used to doing the foundation stitch, you can just chain 31 instead, and then work 1 single crochet into your second stitch and hook, and then do 1 single crochet in each stitch along. But you need to get a stitch count of 30. But we're going to do 30 single crochet foundation stitches, and to do that we are going to make our slip knot first. So do your slip knot like so, and then we're going to chain 2 to begin. You chain 2, 1 and 2, so you chain 2. And to do a single crochet foundation stitch, what we do is we put our hook into that first chain. So we just put our hook into that first chain and bring the yarn through that first chain, so you get your 2 loops. And normally when you do a single crochet in US terminology, we just yarn over and pull through both loops. But what we're going to do, because it's a foundation stitch, we're going to create technically our chain. And to do that we yarn over and we just pull through the first loop only, and that creates our little foundation chain. And then we've still got our 2 loops and we do our single crochet. So we yarn over, pull through both loops, and there's our single crochet. And we need 30 of these, but what we do now is, as you can see here, we created our little foundation chain, and you can just see the little V shape of yarn there. And we want to put our hook into there. So what we do is we find that little foundation chain on the left hand side, put our hook through that little V of yarn, like so. So you're going under 2 bits of yarn, and then bring the yarn through the foundation chain this time. So bring that through so you get your 2 loops again. And we do the same thing again. We yarn over and we pull through the first loop only, and that creates our next foundation chain on the left hand side, our next little V. And then we do our single crochet stitch, pull through both loops. Okay. And as you can see now, there was our first foundation chain, little upside down V, and there is our second one, upside down V, and it's that second one we now work into our next one. So we put our hook through the next one this time, third one. It's one side of the V, and then move over to go underneath the next side. So you're going onto 2 bits of yarn there through that second foundation chain, and bring the yarn through that foundation chain this time. Same thing again, we create our next foundation chain. There's our third one, and then we do our single crochet. Okay, and that's our third single crochet foundation stitch. As you can see, you've got 1, 2, 3 foundation chains on the left hand side, and your 3 normal stitches that we'll be working into on the next row on the right hand side. So we want 30 of these, so now we go into the third one, to make the fourth one. Go into that next foundation chain on the left hand side, bring the yarn through, then yarn over, pull for the first loop to create our next foundation chain, and yarn over, pull through both loops to do your single crochet. Okay, now we have 4. So continue doing this until you have 30 single crochet foundation stitches. Okay. Just going up to the last one, still going into the left hand side, foundation chain, bring the yarn through, pull for the first loop, and then do your single crochet. Okay, so by the end of that you should have 30 single crochet foundation stitches. Okay, and what we want to do now is we want to chain 1, and don't count that as a stitch, that's just going to be our turning stitch. And then going straight into that first stitch, which is on the right hand side, these proper stitches here. We're not working into our foundation chains anymore, you want to work into these stitches on the right. So turn, and working into that first stitch, we're going to do a single crochet. And you need to do 1 single crochet in each stitch to the end. So you've still got a stitch count of 30. Okay, so just do 1 single crochet in each stitch across to the other end. Just going into those stitches as normal. The last one, 30. So you've done 1 single crochet in each stitch across, so you've still got a stitch count of 30. And we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to chain 1. Again, don't count that as a stitch, just our turning stitch. Then turn, and in that first stitch we're going to do a single crochet, and you need to do 1 single crochet in each stitch across to the other end again, so you've still got a stitch count of 30. So 1 single crochet in each stitch across to the other end. Okay, okay, just go up to the last one again, 30. Like so, and then we've finished our basic band, and you want to cut your yarn to leave enough for tying it onto your wrist after, and then just pull your yarn through. So you should have 1 tail end this end, and you should have 1 tail end this end. And what we're going to do with our tail ends is, let's take your yarn needle, we're going to use these for tying onto your wrist. So going to thread our tail ends on, and we want to get the tail end in the middle rather than at the edge. So I'm just going to gently sew, neatly sew rather. It's stuck. Alright, it's going to neatly sew to the middle, just secure. So that's now in the middle rather than at the edge. So I'm going to do the same thing for the other end as well. secure that in place. And there we go, and that's now in the middle as well. Okay, so there's our basic bands. What we want to do now is to create the pattern that goes down the middle. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some brightly coloured yarn and taking a good length for sewing, about this much. I'm going to take a good, about this much for sewing, and get your yarn needle again. And the first thing to do is we're going to sew a little S. Now this has been designed so that it fits 12 little triangles and an S and an F at each end. So the first thing to do is choose one end and find the first hole that you can see there at the end. Okay, so there's the end, and then the first little hole you see there, we want to put our needle through there. And then just leave a little bit of a tail at the end, just so it's easy to sew in at the end. And then we want to go over to the hole opposite. And we're going to do a little S here, like so. And then we're going to go down one stitch. And then we are going to go up to meet our red, the top. You can see the little S starting to appear, and then we're going to go over one stitch. Get that to come through, over one stitch. Get these tail ends out the way. And then we're going to go over to meet our red. And then we're going to go down one this side. And then we're going to go up to meet our red. And then we go over one stitch here, then over to meet our red. Okay, and that completes our S, like so. That's going to be our little S to mean start. So that's where you're going to start your day. And then what we're going to do is we are going to do little triangles all the way down here, and we want to do 12 of them. So what we're going to do is we are going to find the next hole down there underneath your S, and we are going to do a little triangle, and we're going to go over to the hole this side, and then down to this stitch hole here. Then we're going to go up to meet our red diagonally. Make sure I get on the right side, there we go. And then come back down to this bottom one again. And then we're going to go up to meet our red at the top. And that completes our first little triangle, like so. And then we're going to move on to our next one. It's exactly the same thing again. We go down to the next stitch here. Go over to the other side. Down to this one on this side. Then up diagonally over here. Back down to the bottom again, and then up to the top to complete our next triangle. So you can see there's a stitch between the S in the first triangle and a stitch between the triangles, and then we go on to our next one. So you want to carry on doing this, creating your little triangles, and you want 12 of them in total. You have 12, and each one's going to represent a movement session. we're going to have 12. So just do 12 of these exactly the same way, all the way down your wristband until you have 12. So I shall do that, and then I shall come back and show you how to do the F. Okay? Okay, so I've repeated that all the way down from the beginning. We should have 12 triangles now, and it should leave you just enough space at the end to do your F. So to do your F, we go into the stitch below again, as if doing another triangle. Then we go over to the hole that side, then down one stitch the same side, and then up to meet the red, and then we're going to go over to the next stitch there. So it's going to be a bit of a slanty F, back to meet the red, and down to the very last stitch down there, then up to meet your red. And there's our F for finish. That's at the end of your day. Okay, so there's our start, and then we've got our 12 little triangle notches to our session timings, and then our F at the bottom. So all that's left to do now is to tie in your tail ends for the red, not the white, because we're going to use the white for tying onto our wrists. So to do that, we just thread it and then just sew it through a few stitches as neatly as you can. And back in the opposite direction, like so, and then just making sure you haven't come through on the other side, just trim down the excess, and do the same for the other end as well. Okay, so now we have our basic wristband with our S and F at each end and our little triangles in the middle. So what we're going to do now, we shouldn't have tied in those white tail ends. Next thing we're going to do is our little marker, so we know where to count our notches. So you want to take the same colour as your red. You can use another colour as well if you want it to stand out even more. And taking same hook size, 4mm, we are going to chain 7. So we're going to chain 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So chain 7. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a treble crochet in our 5th stitch from hook. So our 5th stitch, we don't count the loop on our hook. There's our 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, which is effectively your 3rd chain up. And you want to wrap the yarn around your hook twice to do a treble. So wrap the yarn around your hook twice. Find that 5th stitch from hook, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is your 3rd chain up, and put your hook into there. Bit neater than I just did. There we go. And then bring the yarn through that 3rd chain up, that 5th chain from hook, and you should have 4 loops. And to do a treble, basically whenever you do a double crochet or bigger, you always pull through 2 until you end up with 1 loop. It's an easy way to remember larger stitches. So we yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, so you've got 3 loops left, yarn over, pull through the next 2 loops, 2 loops left, yarn over, pull through the last 2. So you pull through 2 until you end up with just the 1 loop, and that completes a treble. I'm going to do another one of those, so wrap the yarn around your hook twice again, go into that next stitch, which is your 2nd to last chain, and bring the yarn through. Same thing again, we yarn over, pull through 2, 1, 2, yarn over, pull through the next 2, then yarn over, pull through the last 2. That completes another treble. Then we want to chain 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4, chain 4. We're going to slip stitch in our last chain, that first chain there. Let's find that very last chain, and do a little slip stitch. Bring it through the chain and straight through a loop on your hook. Okay, then we're going to cut our yarn, pull the yarn through, and we're going to hide these tail ends. We're going to sew in these tail ends, but you should have something that looks a little something like that. So you've got like these 4 lengths, as it were, with gaps in the middle. So, but let's tie in these tail ends first, get them out of the way. To do that, same thing again, we just thread onto a yarn needle, just sew over, just neaten off that corner, then on the back, if there is a back, just sew through a little bit of the stitch, back in the opposite direction, and then trim the excess down, and do the same for the other tail end as well. Okay, so once you've tied in your tail ends, you should have this little 4 length thing. What we're going to do is you take one end of your bracelet and you want to thread it so that the first loop, the first length, is at the front, and we're going to pull that through like so, and then skipping the 2 trebles in the middle, finding that last one, we want that to the front as well. Okay, so it creates like this sort of buckle, as it were, as if it was on a belt. So you've got the 2 trebles at the back and these 2 lengths here, and you want it quite tight so it's not going to move around on your wrist. And there we go. So all that's left to do is to wear it and to monitor those movement sessions. So what you can do at the start of your day there, you can, when you feel your first baby's movement session, you can just put it on the first notch, and then when you get to, if you have another session later in the day, you can move it to the next one, and then count them throughout the day, and then by the end of your day, when you get towards the finish, you can count how many movement sessions you've had to know that baby is healthy. And if you get to the end of the day and you've only had a few movements, and normally if you have, you know, say 9 or 10 movements, but you only have 3 that day, then you know to call your midwife or your doctor to make sure that everything is okay. And you can just tie it onto your wrist, which I am now going to try and do one-handedly. There we go. Tie it onto your wrist. A bit loose on me because I can't tie it very well, so let's just hold it there for now. So there you go, and you can monitor it throughout the day, like so, on your wrist. So you've got it with you at all times. And also, when you've had your baby and everything's all well and you're breastfeeding, you can make another one of these, or you can rip out the triangles and make one for breastfeeding. So you can do exactly the same thing. And here we have, I've sewn on an L and an R, so you know, you can monitor which was the last boob that you used for breastfeeding your baby. So you can know, oh, this time I should use right. So there we go. I hope you found that useful. It's a lovely, useful tool for mums who are breastfeeding or pregnant. But also a really nice alternative gift for a baby shower as well, if you want to make something a little bit different, something a little bit more thoughtful, maybe. But I hope it's useful. I hope you managed to follow along, and I will see you soon for some more crochet fun. Cheers for watching, guys. Bye.